Elizabeth, I'm so excited.
Me too.
I'm so excited. I'm here in rural Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it kind of is rural.
In rural Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Driving in the middle of the night to speak with Elizabeth right before she closes on her first investment property.
Yeah.
A duplex here in Pennsylvania.
Very exciting.
And I'm at her house, number one. Also, I am here to do something new. I have wanted to see you guys out in the real world for a very long time.
I think it's great.
I'm happy that I'm at your place. I'm
It's
happy that we
cool.
get to see your investment property and that I convinced her, or I begged a little bit for her to do this podcast with me. You guys have asked questions and I'm going to get out of the way. I have them written down, but this is going to be Elizabeth's time to shine because started the cohort in September.
Yeah,
Started
absolutely.
the program in September and here we are in November.
We're closing today. Yeah.
Closing. So we're going to start at the very beginning. I have questions and
Okay.
feel free to say as you please.
Wonderful.
What interested you in real estate to begin with?
Making more money. Long term. Long term, I want to have more money, more diversity, more options. Money is options. Money gives you freedom.
Yeah.
Money allows you to do what you want to do. I don't need to have millions of dollars, but I want to be able to go on trips. I want to
Yeah.
be able to buy things that I want or need.
Yes.
And not think, oh, should I wait till next month? You know, it's time to change and be a little less nervous around money. And instead of always saving, invest some
Yeah.
in something that will definitely pay a return.
Yeah. Would you say money was tight? Is that why you want more money? Because money.
Money was a little tight. It was okay, but I'm looking at the big picture,
Yeah.
long term, that
Okay.
our money wasn't growing and that I need to change that.
That is a very interesting idea. So your money wasn't growing. What does stagnant money look like? What did you see that said this is a problem?
Well, I know that I'm going to need a new car soon.
Oh,
And I kind of looked at how much new cars have gotten and I'm like, I'm not comfortable taking that much out of savings. And interest rates are high, so I need to make more money.
so it was looking at I could buy this
Right.
if I wanted to, but it's finite, right? Once the check is written,
It's gone.
it's gone.
And it depreciates. Cars depreciate. So I've never really liked to finance them super long.
So I'm looking at this depreciating asset. That, and maybe I'm using the word asset a little too loose. I'm looking at this depreciating item
Yeah.
that I could buy in cash, but instead I would like to put that same amount of money potentially
Right.
into something that can pay for that vehicle and continue to pay me once that vehicle's debt is paid off.
Exactly.
And and you said something last night, and I just want to bring it up. What interest rates were you seeing on those cars that you were looking at?
Well, there are some good offers that are 0.9, 2.9, something like that I would definitely finance.
Yes.
But there are also people out there paying 8.9.
Yes.
And they have suggested that rates may go up
Yeah.
with the new administration. So I'm a little nervous.
And there were a few things that were clicking for me, right? Because to access a 1.9% interest rate requires fantastic credit, right? Requires you to have money in the bank. You have to already be good financially
Yes.
to even get that.
Yes.
But to still see it and say, I'm still financing a
Right.
depreciating item, even when the interest is almost negligible, especially in this particular economy, takes some foresight to say, even though I know in 4 years I would have preferred this money to have gone to an asset,
Right.
a true asset that makes me money instead of going to an item
That depreciates.
that depreciates. That's right. So before you and I met, came across each other on timeline, anything, you were already in your brain saying, this is something that's important to me,
Absolutely.
right? So what I guess made you turn into the simple real estate neighborhood and say, this is something I want to?
I started following you probably in the very beginning.
Oh!
And yeah, I've been around a long time, at least 2 years. And so,
I didn't know that.
yeah, I've been following a really long time. And I liked the message. And it was sort of a message in the way that I live my life, where I try to save money, be reasonable, but at the same time still live and do the things I want to do.
Yes.
So sometimes I do spend money on things that maybe I shouldn't, but most of the time I'm reasonably frugal. And, but long term, I realized that I want more. I talked with a friend of mine and she was telling me what her goals were. And I was like, her goals are so crazy high. But that made me question, why are mine low? I need to make my goals a little higher, shoot for more, and make my life easier.
Yeah.
Not have to be like, oh, I don't want to pay this, for a couple weeks. So.
Yeah. What goals have you set since that conversation? About real estate or not, but what were those big goals that made you say, if I am allowed to dream a little bit,
Right,
this is what I would want? Because you shared some with me.
Yeah, I would really like to get to the point where I have at least 10 units.
Yeah.
And I would like to have a net income from investments of $100,000.
Yes.
And that could change.
Yes.
I might find that I don't like it as much as I thought I would. In which case, maybe I won't want as many properties.
Yeah.
But I feel like if I can get to the point where I'm making a decent amount of money, and then I can decide, do I want to keep going and hire people to work with me?
Yes.
Have an assistant, have whatever, a property manager, whatever I need.
Yeah.
I'm not against that. But in the meantime, let me take this property, parlay it into another property, and so on and so forth. And other people do this. Why can't I?
Yeah.
It's not rocket science.
What I've enjoyed so much, even with the last few months, is the boldness, which with Elizabeth feels comfortable talking, right? On our weekly calls, on our personal phone calls of like, no, I want this.
Yeah.
And so I'm willing not only to put my money where my mouth is, I'm willing to put my actions where my mouth is. I'm willing to say, it's not just that I want this great thing, which is fantastic to want. I am going to do the research. Elizabeth came with her own Excel sheets. I'm plugging things in. Help me with these formulas. I don't understand. Right.
Yeah.
Which one is cap rate or operating return versus cash on cash versus which one is important? And we had to stop and say they're all important in their own way. But based on your own criteria, you're going to decide which solution is the best for you.
Right.
But still, it was I'm going to do the work associated with figuring out what property is next.
I had just been thinking about the whole process too long. I kept thinking, I need to do this. I should do this. I had looked at properties in the past and not jumped on it.
Yeah.
And it was just time for me to be like, if I'm going to do this, I need to do it now.
Yes.
I'm not getting any younger.
Yes.
I don't want to be doing this when I'm really old. I need to do it now so I can enjoy it. And I'm glad I finally bit the bullet and said, okay, I need to get serious.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, oh, I'm going to do this sometime. No, why am I waiting?
Yeah.
What am I waiting for? Life is going to continue.
You mentioned I'm not getting any younger, right? I think that's a problem a lot of people have in their brains of like, I've missed the train. Like I can't get on it.
The train
It's
keeps
too late.
going.
It does.
You don't miss the train.
It does.
You can get on at any stop.
Yeah. Oh,
Do I wish I had gotten on at an earlier stop? Absolutely. But at the same time, I'm happy with where my life is.
Yeah.
And that would have changed everything. So
is there anything else other than age that maybe held you back a little longer than you might have wanted? Because I'm thinking about other people seeing you, right? Like literally seeing what you're doing at this point of your life and thinking, well, maybe it wasn't age for me. Maybe it was this other piece.
honestly, it's always been something. My mom had moved in with us. I cared for her for a few years. My husband has MS, so he has a lot of doctor's appointments and busy things that we have to do, and it's up and down. So it would always be like, oh, I wouldn't be able to deal with this. And you know what? That's not going to go away. And why am I not doing it? So it was just time. I wish I had done it a few years ago, but I didn't, and I'm not going to waste my time wishing that I did something. I'm going to act.
I love that. The combination of like, I'm not going to let my age hold me back.
Right.
I'm not going to let my parents, my in-laws hold me back. I'm not going to let my husband's illness hold me back. And I want to say hold me back. I don't mean as in like it's dragging me down, as more as these can be encouragements as to why I should do this.
Right.
Not reasons I have to play it fully safe.
Right.
And not engage at all. And that's a powerful jump, because those are also fair reasons that people would say,
Right.
I can't.
Right.
And I don't think
Absolutely.
anyone would say with a straight face, hey, if someone is sick, go ahead and spend anyway.
Right.
That's not common solutions. I would not suggest that and be like, oh, just believe, because it's not enough.
Right.
It's not enough to just believe.
I did plan a lot, and I
Yes.
saved for a long time, and I had this chunk of money saved, and I said, you know what? I need to do something with it. It's not benefiting me just sitting there. I don't want to put it in the stock market. And so this was a great option. And, you know, one of the things we're going to need is a wheelchair accessible van. And those
Yeah.
suckers are expensive.
Yeah.
But I want to be able to get the one that we want when the time comes.
Yes. Encouraged you to push past those fears. Then you and I talked when you first started about what kind of property you were looking for. And that was one of the questions. What was your target? Because everyone has different ideas of what they want their first property to be. So what were you looking for?
So I wanted 4 units or under because I did not want to have to move into commercial financing.
Okay.
Because that's more expensive.
Yes.
And I wanted to get started with something that is reasonable to have a learning curve on.
Okay.
There's going to be a learning curve with tenants, with maintenance, with insurance, with the city. You know, I know there's going to be a lot of pieces to this puzzle.
Yes.
And so, you know, a small multi-unit is going to give me that learning curve without overwhelming me.
Yes.
And I'm sure there will days that will be difficult, but that's life.
Yes.
You know, life isn't always easy.
Come on.
And, you know, it was time to make more money, but still have flexibility.
Yeah. Yeah. Did house hacking, the plan of living in one of those units, since you were looking under 4, did house hacking ever come into mind or come to mind?
Only a little bit. We have made sure we bought a property that if we ever wanted to live there, that we like it enough to do that.
Yes.
You know, I don't want to be a slumlord.
Yeah.
I don't want to, I want to provide people with a nice place to live.
Yes.
I rented for years when I was younger. I stayed in one apartment for 7 years.
Wow.
The landlord was reasonable.
Yes.
He didn't raise my rent a lot. I stayed.
Yeah.
It was a decent neighborhood. So I kind of want to provide the same thing.
Yes.
You know, people deserve a nice place to live. Doesn't need to have granite countertops.
That's right.
So if we ever needed to, we could move there.
Yeah.
We don't intend to.
Yes.
But if we have a change in circumstances, at some point we will sell this house because it's a little larger than we need.
Yep.
But at this point, not really.
Yeah. I so appreciate, especially as I grow in this business, right, and come across such different people, I am so deeply appreciative of the honesty, right? Because I was a house hacker. That's how I got started. And one of the reasons I'm a house hacker and encourage other people to be house hackers is because of how cheap it is.
Right.
Right? Being able to put down maybe 0% for a down payment is a lot easier to stomach for Deandra than putting down 20%. Right?
Right.
But that was because Deandra only prioritized finances. So for a long time, I was like, whatever it takes to save money, I will live in the property. I will manage my own units. I will clean it all. I'll get up on the roof. We'll figure it out.
I remember those videos, and I have very similar overalls from Duluth Trading.
My Carhartt, that's right.
Yeah.
I was willing to do it all to save $1. And so it honestly, back in 2019 and 2020, when I started my pages, and I'm 26 years old, 27, it genuinely blew my mind that there were people like, no, I want to be in my own house with lots of bedrooms. I don't want roommates. I got the 20%. And I was like, how?
Right. Right.
How do you have the 20%? Or why wouldn't you want to? And as I've gotten older, right, as my life has changed and my priorities have changed, it is so refreshing to hear people, especially women, say, no, I'm good, right? I want to invest, but I have other priorities that are not just finances, and I want them all to blend together.
Right.
So you wanted a 4-unit because of the financing. You didn't want a house hack.
Correct.
Because of living where you live, loving your home.
Right.
Beautiful, beautiful home.
We love the property. It's good for my husband. It's good for me too, but you know, he can go out and wander. I did consider house hacking when I was younger. I did look at multi-units or duplexes where I lived in half. I just never found the right one.
Yes.
And just decided that, okay.
Yeah. I also, and we don't have to say the exact number, but there was also a boundary financially.
Yes.
Of like, I could put more down, right? I could write a larger check.
Right.
I also want this to be a certain price.
Right.
And I want you to talk about it again. You don't have to share the number, but why did you set that back? Instead of being like, I'm all in. Why was there a number you set?
One, I had saved a certain amount of money that would cover the 25% down payment.
Yes.
Which took me a long time.
Yeah.
But I took every extra penny I had and went, okay, I don't need this. Put this in here. Put this in here. And then I went and I got approved because I didn't want to go fall in love with something and find out that, oh, I can't afford that. So when I started that process, the first bank that did the approval gave me a really low number and they wanted me to tap into the equity of my house. And I was like, that's it? Really? So my realtor said, talk to these other brokers. So then I spoke with 3 other mortgage brokers, and it was interesting how it's a much different number.
Yeah.
And the other 3 agreed with how much I could spend. And I still didn't spend that much because I didn't want to take that much out of pocket. I want to have reserves.
Yes.
And that would make me very uncomfortable if I put everything in.
I love it.
But there are, as you talked about some of those other options, I had a coworker who did a USDA loan for 0 down.
Sorry. I just
Sorry?
want to make sure I keep my eye on the... Okay.
So
we're recording.
she bought here in Pennsylvania using a USDA loan with 0 down, 20 minutes from where we worked.
Wow.
You know, so they do exist.
Yes.
In reasonable areas that's less rural than where I live.
Yeah. No, the property we're going to go see, or the property you're going to go buy. Not even going to say this is not a tour. This is a closing date.
Yeah, we're going to walk through, check everything, and hand over some money and get all the keys.
That's right. But this was not the first property.
No.
Right?
No. No, it was not.
This was not the first property we analyzed.
Right.
This was not the first property you toured.
No.
This was not the first property you inspected, and not just inspected,
paid
Come on.
to inspect.
This was not the first property we analyzed, you toured, or you paid to inspect.
Right.
So I want to start with those.
Okay.
Right? What made you say no, again, to properties you paid to inspect? Because it is so easy to get trapped in, well, I'm already this deep in.
Right.
I've already paid this much money. I've already given this much time. What made you say no?
So there were a couple properties we really liked. One, the owner took it off the market before we had a chance to make an offer.
Right, I remember that.
They said they would accept an offer. We sent a verbal offer. They never responded. It was disappointing because I still think it's a nice property, but they own a lot of properties and don't want to sell that one. The second one was a beautiful old house built in the 1800s. It has really nice bones, but the amount of money that the seller wants for it, it's simply not profitable.
I see.
They've owned it since the 90s. So for them, it's profitable, but they have not raised the rents. The tenants have been there a long time, and we couldn't have made money at it. The third one that we got all the way through inspection and offer and backed out, it had a leaking oil tank, and they didn't believe us. You're going into the heating season.
Yeah.
That has to be fixed.
Yes.
Then the title company wanted a survey of the property because it had been subdivided in the past. And the seller wasn't very interested in doing anything. He was willing to take money off, but he didn't want to do any of the work. And we knew that a survey was going to take a long time.
Yeah.
And also at that property, we paid for a lot more things that at this other property that we're buying, the tenants will pay for.
Like utilities and such.
Correct.
Got
so
it.
there's less risk to us.
Yes.
And really it was the better combination. So we walked away and went looking and found this property. But we've probably looked at 25 or 30 properties.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean,
Wow.
it was very helpful, actually. I would recommend looking at as many as you can because you see one property and you think, that's pretty nice. Then you see 5 more and you realize that first property was terrible. Was terrible.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, I saw some properties that honestly, I can't believe people had to live there. And it made me kind of sad.
Yeah.
But I can't change that for them.
Yes. Yes.
So, but maybe you can.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Again, with the specificity of what you were looking for, right? Size, type of financing, budget, also quality of property, right? There was a level of work you're willing to do.
Right.
But to step into an emergency situation like
Nope.
a leaking oil tank in the middle of winter
Right.
for a gas heated home in rural Pennsylvania
Right.
is crazy.
Right.
And for a seller to not acknowledge it, right?
They
For
said it was inspected in April. And the funny thing is, my husband is a retired oil guy. So that was the one thing that he looked at very closely and went, oh no, this is a problem.
Yes.
And honestly, they're under agreement with someone else. I don't know how that's worked out.
That's right.
But
And it's not that the thing couldn't have been fixed.
Absolutely
right?
could have been fixed.
It's not that it couldn't have been paid for and done, but you can say, I'm good on that.
Right.
Right? I'm under contract for a house right now. If they don't fix the roof, I'm good.
Right.
And that's okay. Can roofs be fixed? Yes. Does it have to be me? No. That's not what I'm looking for.
Right.
I would rather, and this was something you talked about too, I'm not big about buying properties that I have to go in to raise the rent in order to justify the debt that I've just taken out, right? Because I have learned in my experience, especially with larger multifamilies, so much of the success comes from the harmony of tenants living together.
Yes.
Tenants will forgive, will understand and accept a lot
Right.
if you are not just destroying the culture that they have built, unless it's bad, right?
Then you might need to.
Then
A lot of the units we looked at, tenants said to us, we hope that whoever buys it doesn't raise the rent.
Yes.
But the truth is that at the price that some of these units are being sold for
Yes.
and the market, you have to raise the rent.
Yes.
So we really thought twice. And I didn't want to have to do that to
Yes.
people because, as I said, I rented for a long time.
Correct.
So,
I was the same. Of like, either the seller has to lower the price
right.
so that their rent as it stands can justify the debt, or the seller should have done it already.
Right.
Right? If you had market rent, again, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Correct.
I also respect you keeping it lower.
Right.
I do. I have tenants who I haven't raised rent on in years because my debt is solidified. I don't want to mess up the culture. I'm happy
Right.
with the profit I'm making. But if I was going to ask for market price, the new owner could not justify it with what
Right.
is currently being paid. Like you said, those people owned it since the 90s. They have no debt likely.
Right.
So it's all profit to them. But if I have to finance, especially with these interest rates,
Right.
if I'm taking 6.5 to 8.5 to maybe 10,
Right.
that's a lot.
And interest rates have jumped through this process. They came down for us, but then they went back up a little bit.
Yeah.
And then they came down again, thankfully, and we locked in right before they went back up.
Yes.
So, we had to really think about, okay, well, wait a minute. If it goes up too much, this isn't going to be very profitable. So that could change things.
Has anything changed about your outlook? And this is one of the questions. Has anything changed about your outlook about this process since you joined the neighborhood?
I think that what I've really learned is I want to run the numbers before I go look at most properties.
Okay.
Because you don't have everything before you see a property, but you generally have the rents, you have the taxes, and you know what the tenants are paying for. So you can get an idea how profitable it's going to be.
Yes.
And not waste my time looking at some properties that, it's not going to be profitable
Yes.
at what they want for it. And I'm willing to offer less, but I don't want to waste my time.
Yes.
So really it's a matter of, is this reasonably profitable at a similar price to what they're asking? Then I'll go look at it.
Got it.
So, and I'm kind of excited to, not right now, but soon, go look at more properties and see what could be the next one.
And hearing you say that 25 to 30 properties earlier,
Right.
For the people, are these all in the same area?
Basically, we have covered the Lehigh Valley.
Okay.
So we were looking within about 20 to 30 minutes of our home. So we wanted to be able to get there if there's a problem and take care of things, or at least find out what the problem is and then call in a professional.
Yes.
I don't want to assume that I need a plumber at 11 o'clock at night and find out that, oh, well, no, I can turn this off. and
Yeah.
that it doesn't need to be dealt with until tomorrow.
Yes.
So we really wanted that.
And it adds more to the
learning.
learning for sure, but the
Right.
credibility associated with knowing your market.
Right.
Right? Because if all of these 30 properties were all over Pennsylvania and also maybe in New Jersey and also maybe in New York, you're looking at such radically different markets.
Right.
When you said, oh, I saw that first house and I was impressed to see 5 more, but they're in very different areas. It's like, well, you can't really compare those prices.
Right.
You can't compare those tenants. You can't compare those laws with how to manage your properties if they're all over the place. But when they're all in the same hour radius, you're like, oh,
Right.
this is what $200,000 gets you. This is what $100,000 or $500,000 gets you. This is what long-term tenants get you.
Yes.
This is what properties who have no deferred maintenance done compared to properties who have been kept up. The difference in the same area is very powerful. We head to closing in a couple hours.
Mm-hmm.
What are you nervous about still at this point?
The only thing I'm really nervous about is A, could we find something in the final inspection that needs to be taken care of?
Okay.
Because calculating how much that they need to give us to fix it properly is tenuous in a short term.
Yes.
And really communicating with my new tenants. What is the best way to do that? And I haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah.
I've met them. We all got along quite well.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to it. They seem to be really nice people.
Mm-hmm.
They kept their apartments very nice and clean. So that was a good sign. So I don't think we will have any issues, but how will I do that?
I appreciate you being so forthright with the fears or concerns because they never go away.
Right.
And I want to make that clear, right? It's not like this program, it's not like any work you have done then makes it like, oh, I worry about nothing. Everything is taken care of. I have a plan for every solution, I have a solution for every issue we might face. It's no.
Oh, no, I don't.
Even scared,
Right.
I'm still going to do it. Or even still concerned, I'm still going to deal with this. Good morning.
Hi, honey.
And I hope that resonates with anyone watching, with anyone listening, that it's not a magic wand that makes it all disappear.
Right.
There is still a tension. And I think that tension is also really good because it means you want to do a good job. If you were just like, no, I'm just here to collect the check and be done.
No.
I'd be like, oh, that's not quite what I thought we were going to get. But like, I want to do a good job and that makes me nervous. But that nervousness is a good sign that
Right.
you are not minimizing the responsibility that comes with being someone's landlord.
Things go wrong in life.
Yes.
Our dryer died 48 hours ago and we had to take care of that.
Yeah.
But we got a part, we fixed it.
Yes.
Well, same thing will happen with the duplex. If something goes wrong, we'll figure out what needs to be done, whether we can do the work, whether we can hire somebody, really just is going to vary. And life has problems. It's not a big deal. I'm not saying I won't be absolutely crushed if something terrible happens.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
that it's all going to be roses and chocolates. No, but I think it'll be worth it in the long run.
Amazing.
So
I was speaking to some other students on my drive up, Anna in particular.
I heard you spoke with Anna. Yes.
And something I loved about speaking with Anna, another member on a phone call up here, was that she had spoken to you about me already being here. And when I tell you, it never crossed my mind that you guys would talk to each other. Not you two in particular. I mean, people in the community at all.
Right.
Because I'm such an introvert. And so stick to myself in the corner. It never crossed my mind that y'all will be having conversations.
Oh, no. I like to ask everybody questions.
Yes.
Everybody that has done this sort of thing.
Yes.
I'm asking the questions 10 different ways. And then I'm taking that information going, okay, I think I want to do it this way. And I love to kind of crowdsource questions.
Okay.
Because I don't need to reinvent the wheel. This has been done. And you guys are all doing it well. And Anna's doing it. So she has some suggestions.
Yes.
She made me think about going to further areas.
Yes, because she's in deep Pennsylvania too.
Right.
Yep.
Like she's like in a place that I consider really out there. We're 20 minutes from downtown here. Yes. I can get to Manhattan in an hour and 45.
Yes.
But she's really out there.
Yeah, it is deep.
Yeah. So, but maybe I'll go out there next.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I was just so touched that it's not just the like me you connection,
Right.
that it's the like person connection outside. Because I was like that's an unintended benefit or reward
Right.
of what we're doing or what I'm trying to do, and just deeply honored. So as we wrap up,
Yes.
what are your next steps? Not with this property, as an investor as a whole. What are with those goals, trying to get to that $100,000 per year, what's the next step for you?
So I think short term, we're just going to sit on the proceeds and save them.
Yes.
We've agreed that maybe we'll take 10% to use for some fun or whatever.
Yeah.
And invest the rest. After the end of the year, I'm going to take my new tax information to all those mortgage brokers that I spoke with before.
Yes.
I really like the one that I've worked with.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that there isn't a better rate out there.
Come on.
And a woman that I went to college with works with a local bank. I'm going to reach out to her and be like, hey, this is my long-term goal. Are you guys interested in working with me?
Nice.
How do I get to the next step? And if they're interested, great. If they're not, there'll be someone who is.
Yes.
And then I have a friend who is downsizing his properties, and I've already kind of put a tickle in his ear. When you're ready to sell your last couple of properties, talk to me.
Yeah.
Now, the one problem is he's owned them literally since the 80s. So I suspect the rents he's charging may not cover. So we may be in a situation where it doesn't work for us. But I said, just come talk to me. When you're ready, maybe I'll be able to do it. And if not, that's fine. There's other properties out there. So probably around the new year, I'll start looking again.
I
So
love that. Of how again, I know I keep saying the foresight, but that's just really what it is. It's the intentional thinking forward
Right.
about, hey, I'm not going to take the money.
right.
Right? I'll take a little bit of money, but I'm not going to take all of the money because I need to learn. And I've said this in my classes, right? That I would love to give it a year so we learn through the seasons, right? We know, luckily, you're not in charge of any utilities.
Right.
But if that property she did buy with the leaking gas tank, I now know what my gas bill is.
Right.
Right? If I had to be responsible for any electric, if I had to hire a landscaper, oh, I didn't know these flowers were coming up here. Or, oh, I didn't know what kind of grass this was, that we had hornets or whatever we had.
Right.
I get to learn that for the first year. But even to take a little is fantastic. But to say, in the meantime, I'm not trying to buy another property in the next couple months. That doesn't mean I can stop putting the work in.
Right. And I want to get ready.
Yes.
Prep. I'll need the money down. Right now, they're requiring 25%. That's a big chunk of change.
Yes.
So, saving that, being prepared for that, and finding the right property again.
Yes.
This property is a good property and makes a reasonable amount and doesn't need that really any work.
Yes.
So we're very thankful that the previous owners did a lot of the updates that it needed. So, and they're happy. They have actually moved and are glad to sell.
Yeah.
So
the last thing I want to say before we get out of here, because this was just a little tidbit I thought was really special, was that Elizabeth, under contract, as is property, comes back, stuff needs to be done. Kind of, right? Stuff that's like, it's on its way out, doesn't have to be done tomorrow.
Right.
And she was told, hey, you got to just take it as it is. And just one little piece of advice of like, hey, get more money back.
Right.
Right? Just because it's as is, that means they're not going to do work. They can give you cash.
Right.
But the credit you got because you were able to go back was 4, maybe 5 times the amount you paid for the membership.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I actually said that to someone recently, that I have made my money back.
Yes.
Already.
Yes.
I'd say it's 4 times.
Oh, 4 times the amount.
Yeah, literally. Maybe even a little bit more. And, we had spoken with our realtor and she said, oh, well, they sent the contract back where they're not going to do anything. And then when I went back to her and said, well, wait a minute, they don't have to do the work. Could they just give us some money back?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, yeah, they could do that. But she wasn't thinking that way. And she's a great realtor, no complaints. But, you suggested we do that. And then I spoke with my attorney who also said, absolutely ask for that money.
Yes.
And then the good thing is my realtor asked for double what I was going to ask for. And then we got 80% of that.
Yeah.
So, and honestly, that small but large chunk of change really took it to the point where I have more left over than I wanted to have.
Yes.
So now I have a comfort level.
Yes.
As opposed to having to put that all in today.
Yes.
So I'm very excited.
And it was those little tweaks coming from me, but
Right.
the only reason I can tweak so well
Right.
and like make it just a little more efficient is because of how clear you were. Right. With all of my notes, I can be like, she said she wants this amount of money. She said this is how much she wants to make. She doesn't want this work to be done. So, okay, with all of the pieces that Elizabeth's already prepped,
Right.
I can then make suggestions to get her closer to what she wants. Not what I want, not what the realtor wants,
Right.
not what the sellers want,
Right.
what you as the buyer want.
This is what I want.
That's
so
right.
that I make a certain amount. And I created a spreadsheet for every house I liked so that I could be like, oh, okay, the numbers are close enough to continue with this.
Yes.
In the future, I'm going to create that spreadsheet before I look.
Yeah.
Because there were a couple of them that in the end, it was like, oh, the numbers on this are terrible. I'd have to make a really low ball offer.
Yeah.
And people don't like that. They get mad. And then when there is something that needs to be fixed, they're like, no, we're not doing it.
Yeah.
So I don't need to do that.
Elizabeth, thank you.
Thank you. I'm very excited.
Definitely sprung this podcast on you last minute.
Yes. Yes.
Because I thought it'd be a
Yes,
thing. She was very
absolutely.
nervous about it. But I think this will really show people and do a lot of work to help people see that they can do it
Absolutely.
too. If they put in their portion of the work and the preparation. So thank you.
I'm not special. I'm just an average person who is working towards her goals.
Yeah.
So,
And hopefully for any of you closing in the next couple months, next year or two, I'd love to be there. So let me know. Again, Elizabeth, thank you.
yeah, that really surprised me when you said I could come. At first, I was like, oh, God. And then I was like, wait a minute. Why would I say no to that? And my husband said, why is she coming? I'm like, well, why not?
That's right.
So, sorry, babe.
So Elizabeth, thank you. Thank you guys for watching. And
Thank you.
hopefully you'll see us at the next closing.